trigger.
Vimal, Dinesh, Shrikant, is it fine now? You people are able to see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, sorry, questions. Actually, I logged into the app version, so I was unable to share the screen. Okay, fine. So, sorry for the delay. So, we'll go ahead. Yesterday, we had discussed, okay, about the binding. It was a completely one-way binding. That is, we were just reading the data, which we have created a simple static model in our index page. Okay, we had set the static data inside a JSON model. Okay, and then the JSON model was set on my core. Okay, so that it is available to all my views. Okay, that's what the reason we had set that model on my core with the alias name. Alias name we use because if there are more than one model, then definitely we will try to fetch the data with the help of the name, with the help of this particular alias name, as we have done here by using the alias name and process, which is our alias name for the data model. Okay. Then what we have done is we just created some standard list items. Then we try to bind these, but this is not the right way, because when the server gives us the n number of records, then you cannot just write n number of you cannot just expect that these number or this is the number, this is the n, and you cannot write these statements for n times. Okay, so there must be a way which dynamically understands that there is, okay, these records are coming from my backend, so I have to copy this one particular statement this number of times. Okay, that must be the ideal way. And that way, okay, that way how do we do is how do we tell our application that, okay, this is the way you have to run, is with the help of using something called as bind aggregation. Okay, as you all know, what is aggregation? Aggregation is the property of a particular control which can hold n number of controls inside it, right? So here when bind property, when I say bind property, it means that I'm binding a certain property, simple property, okay, which can hold only one value of one particular control to some value from a database. But when I say bind aggregation, it means that I'm trying to bind an aggregation item, an aggregation property of a control which can hold n number of controls. It means that the n number of controls inside my aggregation now will be able to fetch the binding data. Okay, we'll see how it's done. Okay, so for that we'll just comment these lines because we will not be needing this now. Okay, I'll be just commenting these. Fine. And even these two will not be needed actually. I just need list, that's it, and nothing else. Okay, so I have my list there. I'll just save this now. Fine. So we were talking about the bind aggregations. How the bind aggregation can be written is you have to just use the object name first. Okay, we'll see. And this must be done, of the bind aggregation must be written, okay, once you have declared your standard list item, that is the template which will go inside your control, which is inside your aggregation. Okay, and you have to create your control where your standard list item, that is the template, will go inside. And once both the controls are ready, only then you can write this statement. Okay, because if you write the statement just above your control, then it doesn't make sense, because still the control is not yet created. So make sure that you write the statement in the last, once your control and your standard list item, that is the template, are ready, okay, to render. So the way we write is we take the object name, then there's something called as dot bind aggregation. Okay, always dot bind aggregation. Then it has three properties which you can send. Okay, the first property will be the first property here is the name of the aggregation. Okay, some of the controls will have it as items. Okay, some of the controls, such as my page, has aggregation called as content, right? Content header is also an aggregation, content left is also an aggregation. Okay, in that way. But right now I'm trying to bind my list. So in my list, my aggregation, the name of my aggregation property is items. So the first thing which we write will be that, and make sure that you are following, you're make sure that the spellings are perfect. Okay, one caps are small, this will cause an error, so it is completely case sensitive. Always remember that. So the first element, okay, the first property in this particular instruction will be my name of the aggregation. Okay, then the second thing here, right? Because bind aggregation, I'm binding my data, my data path, okay, to the aggregation item. So this is the aggregation item. Now I'm telling my control that okay, you have an aggregation item called items. So I'm trying to bind certain path to you. Okay. So we have to give the path here in person slash root node. This is what we have to tell. Okay. Now what it says that so this is my binding path. I have my n number of records. Okay, it is saying that I have my n number of records inside a model with the name, with alias name m person. Okay, you just go inside that. There is one root node. Okay, once you go inside root node, you have n number of records. I want all those n number of records to be binded with the aggregation, with your aggregation called as items. This is what it says. Okay. Then the third one is the optional parameter. Okay, these two are important. These two are required parameters. The third one is the optional parameter. The optional parameter says that if you can observe here, I have a list. Okay, now I'm trying to bind the list with the aggregation. I'm trying to bind the aggregation item of my list with certain data path. But where is the template, right? Because list without anything inside will show you no data, right? Because there's no data, so there must be a template inside it to show something, right? So what initially we had done is we had given the names of our templates inside my items, right? Here this is the other way around. I'm just showing you the multiple ways of doing it. Okay, we could have also easily done just remove all these things and just place this here, right? Exactly here. Okay, then we could have just skipped this part. Even that would have worked. I'm just showing you the other way around because as I said earlier, there is always another way. There's always two ways which you can follow. You can try to set something or try to fetch something or try to manipulate something. Okay, there's always two ways in SAP Wi-Fi. So putting a template inside an aggregation, you can do in this way also. You can just place it here, or you can place this particular template in your instruction also. So now what this instruction tells is, okay, listen, I have my aggregation with the name items. Okay, I want to bind this particular aggregation with the path called as m person root node. Okay, I want all the entire data present inside this particular path to be binded with my aggregation. And what is inside the aggregation? Okay, that is this. So this is an object. So this particular object, this particular object has the path for your particular data, because the reason being this particular object is inside now items now, right? So now my items is directly pointing, okay, towards the inside my root node, because my items knows the path now. Since we have binded it, my items knows that there is something data with the name person, and inside there is a root node. So there are n number of records. So now all we have to do is just, this makes the binding very simple. Now all we have to do is small changes and your application, then this will be ready. Okay. Why I'm trying to remove this is because the reason is, okay, the reason being, now I'm not trying now I'm trying to make it dynamic. I'm binding my aggregation. Okay, I'm binding my aggregation with the model path. So my aggregation knows, okay, there are n number of records, and what this particular instruction does is the controls, the control inside this particular aggregation item, it will try to replicate this particular template. Now this has become a template, right? Initially it was a particular list item which was pointing exactly to one particular record in your data, but now it has become generic. It has become unique. It has become like a dynamic thing, because now we are not pointing to one particular record saying that root node /1 or /0/name. We are not pointing to one particular record. Now what we are doing is we are just pointing to the certain property. Okay, we are not concentrating on one particular record. The reason being, since we have already used something called as bind aggregation, the pointing to one particular record will be taken care by bind aggregation. What at the runtime, what bind aggregation does is, bind aggregation will create this particular template. Okay, it will create duplicate of or the copies of this particular template for the n number of times. If you have n records, then it will create your template n number of times, and each and every template will be binded to one particular record. This is what happens at the runtime. All you have to just do is this, just one simple line, and that's it. Your dynamic binding is done. That is all.bind aggregation. Your binding items, okay, aggregation with this, and this particular instruction can be used on any object which has aggregation. For example, I can make use of my page which has a content as aggregation. I can make use of the bar which has a content left, left, middle, and right as aggregation, or my tiles. Even my custom tile has content right there, so I can make use of this. My V box or H box, all the controls which have aggregation in them, they can make use of this particular bind aggregation thing. Okay, then they can just bind it to some certain data path, okay, object path, or the data path where the data is being present, and then just send a template where on which particular element you want to show the data. So that's it. This one particular line creates the n number of copies of this particular template, then binds each and every copy with each and every record. Okay, then once you do this, then the other change will be to just make these changes, because you have no stand, you have your template, then your template, you must tell the template what it must show, right? For example, now I'm telling my template to show name. I want my title to be shown as name, my description to show gender, and my info to show my age. Okay, and I'm saying that my template will be a type of navigation, and my template will have a press function. Okay, so we will see like how this looks. Okay, so I will be copying the path first so that I can just go and check in my Google. Okay, let's see. Yep. Okay, so I hope there are no errors. That's the reason the screen is visible without any errors, without issue. It's fine. So we'll go to the next page. In my next page, I have to go to the binding, and yes. So it's perfectly visible, and if you can observe, all my list items now, okay, have this particular effect because the reason being, these are the copies of one standard template, one particular main element we have given, and we have used the bind aggregation instruction which created n number of copies of that particular template, and hence since it is a copy, then all the other copies will definitely have all the properties which we have written in our main template. So all my copies here, all my records, or my list items have become responsive, have the effect of a click. Okay, and they also have a press event. So this is how generally you try to write the dynamic things. This is how we dynamically we try to bind the things, because this is the actual right way. So that previously which we had done was just for you people to understand, okay, like why bind aggregation is important. Okay, I could have directly jumped to this, but it could have not made sense. That's the reason I just try to do that, so that now you'll be clear, okay, like why bind aggregation is used and why it is helpful, in what way we can use the bind aggregation on the other controls, how we can use it on other controls also. Okay, so this was how the dynamic binding can be done. Now what we'll do is we'll just show some file so that you can have an easier idea. So this is the bind aggregation here. Okay, so this tells that there are two things which can be passed. One is the string name and the other is the binding info, that is the information of the binding path. So that's what we have done here. We have passed the string name, that is the aggregation particular what we want to bind. Okay, then there is something called as path. So this is what we have sent path, like ampersand greater than slash root node. Okay, so you always remember, that when you are trying to give a path, first of all, okay, if I just go back to my code in Eclipse, okay, when you are trying to give a path here, okay, the first thing will be your table name, that is the alias name. Okay, in my observed my index, my alias name is ampersand. Okay, this will be my first thing. Okay, then greater than will take you inside that, okay, inside the particular record, inside the particular table, okay, sorry, inside the particular table. And once you come inside the particular table, then the next important thing will be to write your root node. It can be anything, okay, it can be root node, it can be XYZ, any word. But the next, as soon as you write this, okay, and say that ampersand greater than, once you come inside this, then you have to write slash root node. Now what it says that my items now, by writing this ampersand greater than slash root node, directly points on these, on my records. Now it's directly pointing on these. It detects, okay, there are 4 records, so I have to create 4 copies of my template, and I have to bind 4 copies of my template, and then it will check inside the template what the template is trying to bind. Template is trying to bind name, template is trying to bind gender. So it will just map the things, map the name of the first record with the first copy of the template. So this is how it happens. If we go back to model, okay, just imagine that now there is something called as name, age, gender. Okay, we have one more property. Okay, we'll just say here comma, and we have one more property called as educational details. Okay, and inside educational details there is again an array. Okay, then what you can do is in such cases, okay, if you want to bind the one of the other data, if you just drill down again, then if you want to bind that particular data, okay, for if the education qualification has again 3 records, for example, school, primary, higher school, and the college, okay, it has 3 records, then you have to drill down to that particular point. So it's saying that the ampersand greater than slash root node, okay, slash your record, it will be then the root node slash, you can say the property such as educational qualification. Okay, you have to mention the root, the path here will extend. Then in such cases your path will extend, because we are again drilling down inside something. So this particular path is very important. This is the one which tells you how many copies must be created, and this is the one which tells you what are the properties which you want to bind. Okay, so this was about the dynamic binding. So now what we'll try to do is we'll try to make it two-way. We'll see how we can add the record. Okay, add the record during runtime. Okay, now here in my output, just I'm able to read, so I'll try to write something and try to add the record, and we'll see how the two-way binding works in JSON. Okay, it's quite simple in JSON, not like the OData, because in OData it's quite complicated actually. Okay, so for that I'll create a couple of inputs. So I'll just quickly try to create a couple of inputs. Or if you're okay, I'll just try to copy certain elements so that we can just because these are very common, right? So I can copy. I hope there's no issue, right? I'll be explaining them, but there's not much being done because we've already seen how to create an input, etc., etc. Okay, if you can just observe this is what I've done. I've just created 4 inputs, so I will not be needing 4. I just need 1 because my data doesn't have a first name or last name. It is just a name. Okay. Okay, let's just say this. Fine. So right now I've just created a couple of inputs. Okay, one's for the name, then the other for the age and the gender. Okay, there are 3 inputs with 3 different IDs. Okay, along with the placeholders, because I want to tell the user that okay, this particular input is used to hold is being created to hold this particular first name. Okay, let's say that. We'll just say this is a name. That's all. Okay, and then we will just try to return these because we want to show these. Okay, on my screen. So just try to return these things. I want them to be shown before list. Okay, so I'll just put this like this so that the inputs are shown first, then the list is shown. Okay. Okay, yeah, it's done. So now we will be able to see a couple of inputs there. Okay, we'll just quickly go to the Google and we'll see the output. So how it looks. So here's my output. Here's refresh. Fine. So I have the inputs now. Okay, all the three inputs are ready. Okay, so I'll just try to write something. Yeah. Cool. So whatever I try to write here, I want them to be, get added. So there must be an event, right? Just by writing this, you cannot expect this to directly go and sit inside your database, right? So there must be an event. So to call an event, or there must be something to tell the browser, okay, if you write something, then generally what would you have is some buttons or something to say that, okay, add record or delete record, something like that. So we'll just create a button soon. So and an event on that saying that I want to add a record. Okay, so here I have a button called as button add. Okay, then it says that text as add record. I have the width. I've created the width of a button as 100% so that it covers my entire screen. Okay, so that it looks better. And I've just a simple tab function here called as add record. Now since I have a tab function here, then I have to write the function. Since I still have not written anything in my controller, and if I don't write it in my controller and try to execute this, then I will be, and it will throw an error, right? So I'm saying that add record is not defined, so I have to first define it inside my controller. Before that, I just add this to my content. Yeah, so I'll just try to write something in my controller, the add record function. Okay. So here the first thing, okay, will be to check whether this particular function is being called or not. So that will be the first thing. So I'll just try to create simple function. I'll just try to write some alerts so that I'll be sure whether it's being called or not, so that now I can go ahead later on. Okay, I'll just write alert. Okay, so just check the output here. Okay, binding, yeah, yes, the alert is working fine, so it means my function is being called perfectly without any issue. Fine, we'll just comment this now, and the next part will be for us to, before once the add record button is tapped, okay, the first thing what we have to do is we'll have to fetch the data, right? We have to fetch all these data from my inputs, okay, then store inside my database, that is my data person, the data model. Okay, so we know that we'll just try to see like how we can fetch this particular data. Okay, what is the instruction which is required to fetch the data from my inputs. Okay, so here if I just say, okay, I'll just refresh and come back again. Okay, I'll just give my colleague's name here, so I'll just say Sam. Okay, and I'll try to fetch this data. Now I just say Control Shift I, the debugger. Okay, and inside my console, now I'll try to write SAP.UI because the code libraries are helpful here. recipe.ui.getCode. Then I hope you remember this by ID, right? We always use the ID to fetch one particular thing, right? And I have to just fetch the ID now. So I will try to copy the ID because because I don't want to make any spelling mistakes. Okay, fine. So it has fetched me this particular element. Okay, now inside this element, since this is the input, so I know that if it was a label, then I could have written get text. So since it is an input, I know that it has something called as get value. By doing this get value, I will be able to fetch the value written inside it. So this is the one which is important for me now. recipe.ui.getCode by ID of the element which you want to read, and then the read statement, that is get value or get text or get title in case of list. So we have you have to see, you will find these things. Okay, I have shown you how to find these things through SAP of SDK and also with your Eclipse. Okay, so now we will be using these instructions, okay, and try to fetch. Okay, so we'll see. We'll try to fetch them and we'll try to store them inside some variable. Just go to Java. Yeah. Inside my controller, inside my add record. Okay, I have to store these things. I'll just create something called as var name. Okay. I'll just try to copy the things so that we can be a little bit faster. Because I hope you all know this, so maybe copying the things may not confuse you. Okay, we are using only 3 properties, so this is not required. Okay, so it's fine. I'm trying to I'm just trying to fetch the values of my 3 inputs. Okay, so these are their IDs, name, age and gender. Okay, I'm trying to fetch the 3 values and I'm storing all these 3 values inside some variables called as fname, age and gender. Okay, I'm just trying to save them. Say this as name. Okay, so now I have fetched all the 3 values. I'm trying to store all the 3 values inside some variables. Now once I fetch these values, I have to store these values inside my data. So what I have to do is I have to access my database here, access my data model and try to store these values. Now why I'm trying to do this is once we go to our OData model, once we try to fetch the data from the server, when we try to show it on the screens, and then the user tries to update or delete or create something. Okay, when he tries to do a two-way binding function, even in that case, the first part, always the first part will be to fetch the data, the modified data. Okay, what the user has done, you just fetch the data, put it in some variables, and then you send that particular variable to the server. So that's what we will be doing in our OData also. So this is like a small example, okay, like so that you can understand that part in a better way, okay, in a better manner. So here, so this is my database now. Okay, so I have to use this. Always try to just copy and paste because that's the best thing to not commit mistakes. So data person dot, I'll be using my root node. Since it's an array, so I can do this data person dot root node. Then I have to just say data person dot root node dot push. Okay, once we go inside the OData and all, it will be a little bit different, but the concept wise it will be very similar. The way we try to push the data differs, that's all, but the concept remains entirely same. Okay, so now we have the data person. Okay, inside the data person we have a root node, and inside the root node we are just trying to push some data. Okay, we already have 4 records inside it. Okay, so this will add the record to them. So when you're trying to add, you have to be sure that you don't mess up with these properties, because when you're trying to add some value to the particular database, then you must, if you're adding a name, then this particular name must be mapped exactly with the key. If you try to use if you try to say, if you just forget, or just make some small spelling mistakes, then it will create an error saying that the property or the key which you are trying to access is not present in your database. So you have to always make use of the exact keys without causing any errors. Now this, but in my data bus and in my root node, I'm trying to push certain values. So I want to bind my name, that is the variable name consisting the data, okay, with one of the keys or with one of the parameters, okay, available inside my database, okay. So name is binded to this name, okay. Then I'll just say comma. Then I better make sure that I don't commit any silly mistakes. H, okay, comma. Then I have 3 properties, so I'll try to get the other property also. Okay, it's fine. Yeah. So what we have done here is we have the data person, we have inside the data person root node, and inside the root node we are trying to push the record, okay, push the data we are fetching from our inputs, okay, this part is done, okay. So we'll try to execute this and we'll say like, we'll see what the output will be. We'll just try to stop it, okay, by using the debugger. We'll just try to stop this particular execution inside this point, okay, yeah. So if I just, okay, I'll be sharing the Google screen, okay, we'll see the output. Fine, here's my button, so I'll just create a record. And I'll just say 24, then I'll just say it's 9. Okay, I'll open my debugger so that I can stop the execution right at that particular debugger point. Fine, so I'll just say add record, so it will, yeah, it has stopped there. Okay, just wanted to make sure whether the values are fetched exactly or not, so that I'll just try to execute one by one instruction after instruction. Okay, so I'll check whether the values are present. Yes, name has it. It is also fine. Okay, all my variables have the data now. Okay, now what I'll try to do is I'll just check what my data person is holding before the execution of that. Okay, it has 4 records, right? It has 4 records. Good. Now I'll try to execute this. Okay, it has executed that, and now I'll see after the execution of that instruction. Great. So the record has been added to it. So it says that root node, inside the root node there are 5 items. Okay, with the index starting from 0, and the last item will be the latest item which I have added. Right, name, age, and gender. So this has got added to my database. So this is how the two-way binding occurs. It is my JSON model, which is generally by default it's a two-way binding. So there was no need to set the binding mode here. But when in my next class, when you go to the OData model, when we fetch the data from the server, and when we try to use the OData model, which is a server-side model, and by default, which is a one-way model, before doing any updation or create or deletion, we have to set the binding mode of that particular model to two-way. Okay, that's the first thing. Once we do that, then there are certain things to be followed. Okay, we will be seeing them. Here it was completely basics. Okay, just how the two-way model looks, or how we try to send the data and store the data inside my database. Okay, but the concept-wise it remains same. The procedure-wise or the approach-wise only that differs when you try to repeat the same things with your OData model. Only that particular point differs. Remaining else will remain the same. The concepts are completely similar. Okay, but okay, now we have added. It's fine, but it has it. I mean, if you want to show the record, okay, dynamically, I have added the record. I wanted to show it dynamically then you have to refresh things, right? Now your screen doesn't know that the data has got added to your database. So what the screen is doing is once this particular view was loaded, it just took the data which was available in my model, which were 4 records, and it tried to show them. Okay, but dynamically, at the runtime, the user has created one more record. Now we have to tell the view, tell the bindings that okay, a record has been created, a database has been modified. So try to show the modified data. Okay, to do that, there is an instruction. SAP Wi-Fi provides that. Okay, and here also we'll be using the same get core. So this, as I said earlier, this is the most important library. Okay, so we'll just try to get the model because the model has been modified and we have to tell the model. Okay, now sap.ui.getCore.get model. Okay, it has got me inside my model. So we'll see inside the our data. So how many objects, right? So it has the 5 objects, no issues. The data is still available. So I just have to show them on screen. So what can I use is there's an instruction, something called as update bindings. So what it generally does is it is telling I've just fetched this model, okay, and I'm telling to this model to update its bindings. Update bindings means the controls or the screen or the any control which is binded to this particular data. For right now my binding view and the list items are binded to this data. So I'm telling my model that update your bindings. It means that update your screens, update your view, because you have been modified. Okay, now you have been modified and your views doesn't know that. So try to tell them and try to update them. So this is what this instruction is going to do. Okay, this is defined. Is the issue. sap.ui.get core. Okay, that was fine. Get model and or update bindings true. Okay, just try to copy this. Okay, let's try to execute. Yeah, it has updated. It has not shown there anything. It just said undefined, but it has updated here, right? You can see this, the extra record which I had created. Okay, as visually it's working fine. So we'll just try to put that particular instruction code also. Okay. Yes. So once we try and get the values. Okay, once the values are available with us. Okay, then what we are trying to do, we are trying to make it as a two-way. So we have just pushed the record inside my data. Now I want to tell my database to update, so that since you are being modified, okay, so tell the bindings which are related to you or the controls which are dependent on you that you have been updated, you have been modified, and tell them to update themselves. So this is how we do. We just try to get the model and we say update bindings. Okay, so this will in turn update your bindings. Okay, yeah, I've just saved it. So we'll just go back and check now. So how this works. Okay, I have 4 records, so I'll just create it again. Okay, then just say add record. Yep, it is added dynamically. Okay, so this is how once we go inside, once we go and try to fetch the data from the server also. Okay, once you get the server data, once you try to show it on your screens, okay, we will be doing all the same things with the OData also. Concept wise, though these are the concepts, but approach wise they will differ. Okay, because when I try to fetch the data from a server, so definitely there will be a different approach. This is static data and it's very simple, but coming to the server, then you will have so many things to be considered before trying to fetch or before trying to update something which is present on your server, right? You just cannot directly just say something and it gets updated. No, that doesn't occur there. So, but the concept wise, this is how your the concepts are. Generally, you just try to fetch some data, then try to push inside the model, then you try to refresh the model. or if you're not able to refresh the model, then the other way around will be to again to again fetch the model and create the bindings. Okay, sometimes you may not be able to refresh the model. For example, now we have used the instruction for update bindings, right? By doing that also you may not be able to see this. In such cases what we can do is what we can do is that we must again read the model, and we must try to do the read part which we have done earlier. For example, we had done the list diagram binding part, and we had tried to set the model on side data in a model and then model on a core, right? So we have to try to repeat the same instructions again. If the update bindings doesn't happen, then we will have to do that. Try to create model again and try to set that model on core again. Because in my OData sometimes it happens that update bindings will not work. So at that case, I will have to make a read call again to load the updated data also. Fine. So we are through with our dynamic binding. Then we have also seen the two-way binding, how it's done. Okay, how to update dynamically at the runtime, just as you say add record. Once the data gets loaded into the database, the view also must be uploaded with updated and show the latest data. So that's done. So now the last part in this particular static binding is, okay, this is a static binding. So once we will go to the OData, then the OData binding we will see. But here the last part we'll be discussing is a concept called as get binding context and set binding context. Okay. So what does this get binding context and set binding context does is this allows us to once you tap on a record, okay, so by doing get binding context at this particular tap event, you can fetch all the data, okay, all the data related to one particular record. Okay, we will see how it's done. Okay, so by doing this get binding context, you will fetch all the data to one particular record. Okay, then now you have your data. Okay, now you have brought that get binding context, gives you that particular data. Okay, now you want to send the data and show on another screen, because that is what happens, right? Because one screen will show you a number of records, and when you select a record, it will navigate to the other screen and it will show the remaining data, the details of that particular record. So what must be happening there? So definitely there must be a link between those pages. So this is my link. Link, is the get binding and set binding context. Okay. So once I fetch the data with the help of get binding context, then I will send that data, okay, with the help of my event bus, right? So you must remember, I hope you remember that the navigation part, that is the .2 instruction. In that instruction, we can send three things, right? One was our ID. The second was the mode of transmission, how you want to show your transmission, whether you want it to be a slide effect, a fade effect, okay. And the third property, which we have not used till now, which we will be using now, is my data property. That is, if you want to send some data, so with the help of event bus and .2 instruction, we will send the data which you are fetching here to our new view. Okay, so this is how the concept is. Once that we tap, we fetch the data, or when we send that fetched data to the next screen, and in that next screen we have to set this particular data on the screen and bind it. Okay, we will see how it's done. Okay, so brief is telling it, or summarizing it briefly, is that on a tab we fetch the data, we send the data, we set the data on the second page. So how this particular three operations are done, okay, we will be seeing into them. Okay, so the first thing for us will be to hold my, to write a debugger here, and I want to hold my execution at this particular tap event, so that I can come to a conclusion like, okay, this is my particular instruction, which will fetch me the data related to that particular record, the remaining or the excess data related to that particular record. Okay. So before going that, we'll just have a look into such instructions. I know a couple of them. Get binding context and set binding context will be helping us to achieve the desired result. So for that, since I'm using my list, okay, and these will be almost available in all the items which we are able to tap, okay, which on the elements are control on which we can write some events. Okay, you can write this particular instructions on any element which has a tap event, which has which are lists or tiles, something like that. Okay, so here there's a set binding context, but initially we will be looking at first get binding context, because this is the one which will fetch us the data. The set binding context will come later on. So I'll just click on this, it will take me to my get binding context. Okay, so get binding context, and inside this get binding context, okay, if you can observe here, this says it takes a model name inside it, and this particular model name, okay, will be in the form of a string. Okay, so we'll be making use of this, okay, get binding context. So we'll see how it can be done. So now we know that, okay, this is how we have to write, okay, get binding context, and inside the parenthesis I have to send my model name, that is obviously my alias name. Okay, so first thing what I would like to do is I have to create an event for the tab. Okay, I already have an event, but it is present in my view, so I'll just try to shift this particular event inside my controller. Then I have to come back to this later. First we'll create the name controller. Okay, so instead of add record, I will try to just say this as list tab, because this is my list, and so on my list I'm trying to tap something. So okay, I'll just take this, then save this page. Save this page first. Okay, then coming back here, okay, so it shouldn't be a semicolon, it must be a comma. Yep, it's fine then. So instead of alert, I'll just place a debugger here so that I can stop my execution at this particular point and try to exactly come to a try to see the instruction which will help me to get that particular binding context, that is the data related to that one particular instruction or one particular item. I'll just refresh this page. Okay, so I'll have to open my debugger before clicking on my elements. So okay, so I'm ready now. I'll just click on the element, right? So it has stuck, it has stopped in my debugger. So now I have to come to a conclusion, okay, of a certain instruction which will help me in fetching the data. So I know that I can use the get binding context. So how to write the get binding? You cannot just write get binding context. You cannot just expect this to work, because it must be inside something. Just say get binding context. Okay, definitely it will say you an error. Okay, if you just even you try to give the model name also. Okay, so get binding context. If the name itself says you are trying to read something, but we are from where we are trying to read, right? That must be given, because the get binding context is just a half instruction. The other half will be my SAP. Here also .ui .get core. Okay. Oh, this will not hold this. SAP.ui.get core will not have this. We have to do one thing here, is that we need an event. Actually, we forgot to write an event there. We'll go back to our code, because as we know that if we are trying to catch, we are trying to fetch, or we are trying to read something related to that particular record or that particular event. So now by doing this EVT, okay, EVT what it does is, so if you have seen in our if you've seen on the login page, we have which the alert which you are trying to get here. Okay, just refresh this page. Login, right? This is showing my ID, right? Here we had used the event. So with help of EVT dot get source dot get ID, we were able to get the ID of the event from where it has occurred, right? So this has given us the ID of the button from where the event has occurred, right? In the same way, okay, by doing the EVT, what we can do is with the help of this EVT, we'll be able to get the exact exact point of contact. We can we can say this will like exact point of contact, or it can be said like exact record or exact list item where the user has tapped to come to a one particular source. Okay, so we'll see how the EVT helps us. Okay, so let's do this. So now if we go inside recipe.ui.getCode also, we will not be able to find this instruction, that is the get binding context. Okay, we will not be able to find this. We can just try this. We can just try this. Okay, it throws an error. So it says it is undefined. It means that this particular get binding context is not inside my recipe.ui.getCode also. So what we have to do is, so we have tried to send a parameter or event. Okay, so now by seeing this, okay, this particular EVT, okay, this particular EVT event has certain things inside it. Okay, this particular EVT holds the this particular EVT holds your source or your the point where from which it was generated, it was created. Okay, so this must help us because EVT tells that okay, this is where I have tapped, this is where the user has clicked. Okay, so EVT says it has certain parameters, certain fields. So this is the string ID press. Okay, this is a press event which was occurred from which this particular EVT was generated. Okay, and then source. If you go inside the source itself, so it says that from where it was generated, from where it was created. Destination is the end part where it is trying to go. Okay, so here we have something called a source. Okay, inside the source, if you can observe, you can find almost all the data related to your point from where it was generated. So it is the list ID is ID list. Okay, this is the exact ID of my list from inside which the user has tapped. Okay, so it shows me the source from where the event got generated. Okay, so if I can observe some other things, what are the other properties available, then there you can find something with the name called as binding context. Okay, if you can see here, if you can observe here, inside the binding context now I have my model, right? That is the M%, and inside my M%, okay, there is a path. If you observe this path, if you can see that this string path, this path says that the user has clicked. Okay, the user has clicked on an element. Okay, which has certain data binded to it. Okay, it is saying this is the binding content which has certain data, which has M%. No, this is the one which has, this is the model, or this is the data which has been binded to it. Okay, and inside my O model, okay, inside my model, I have all my data here. If you observe here, okay, inside the O data here, I have my entire 4 records. Okay, now it is saying that okay, I have now what this particular instruction get binding context will do is it will get me this entire data. Okay, along with that, it will get me this particular path which is important, string S path. Okay, what it tells is the user has clicked on a certain element which has a path called as /root_0. It means that it is trying to point to one particular record. So it is giving us the details about the one particular record. Okay, if I just close this, okay, and just I'll tap on some other record. We'll see what is the path actually. We'll just click on them now. So it has again stopped in the debugger. Okay, just write EVT. Okay, inside my EVT, I have my source. The source is the one which is holding the entire details regarding the source or the point where it got generated. Okay, and there is something called as binding context, person, okay, model, and all the data related to all the information related to my data is present inside the model, and the point of contact, the record on which the user has tapped, and the data which we need or which we want to send to the other page and to show on that page. Okay, this is the path. This path tells that particular point. This is the one which tells that the user has clicked on this record, and when we try and go when we try to send this data, this particular, by doing the get binding context, and when we try to send the data on our next page, and we try to show the particular data, okay, we'll see how it's done. Then the records are, then the properties or values related to this particular path will be shown. Okay, so this is how the get binding context will help actually. So if we write the entire instruction, ebt dot, and we have the source here. Okay, just select it. Source, source is a function. Okay, we are inside the get source now. We know that we'll be using get binding context. Okay, so it's assembly defined. It means we have to give the name. So this is the instruction. So this is the exact thing which we are going to use now. ebt.getSource.getBinding binding context person means that we are trying to get the data, okay, related to that particular. We are trying to get the path and the data. Okay, the data is in my O model, and my path for that particular record, for that particular list item where I have tapped. Okay, this tells that. Okay, so we will try to get this information. We'll try to set this information on my next page. Okay, so we'll be using this instruction now. So this is the one which is getting us the exact point where the user has clicked. Okay, so I'll just go back to my Eclipse. Okay, inside the list tab now, this is the path. So I have to store this in something. So I'll just try to save this as bind data. So now where bind data is holding this particular path. Okay, now on the tab. Okay, so we have to, first of all, we have to create a view also now, because we are after fetching this particular data, we want to navigate to some other view, and we want to show that particular fetched data on that view, right? So we'll just try to quickly create a view. Okay, we'll create one view, and then we'll try to add that view to my index page and do the XYZ operations which are important once you create a view. Okay, so the first thing will be to create view, then add that to the index. Okay, then create navigation between the views. So new, other, I'll go to my view. Next, let's try to write this as bind detail. Okay, so finish. So if bind detail created, now this is not required now. For now, I'll just close this. I will be needing my app view because I've created a new view, so I will just add that first. Okay, search JS type, yes, it's fine. Okay, it's going to be page 3, fine. So I've just added the view. Okay, then I have to create a navigation from on the list tab. So first thing what I have to do is I have to go to my binding controller. So I have to create a navigation on the tab of my list. Okay, I want to navigate from one page to the other page. So first we'll try to create the navigation part. Okay. The navigation here again, I can take the subscriber. This particular part remains the same as I said. So just a reuse of code. We'll be changing the ID. Right, for now we'll just have this commented, we'll see it later. So I have to navigate to this particular page, so I need the ID of that page. So my ID will be ID bind details. So we'll be fine. So this we are trying to navigate. So yep. And once we try to navigate, we'll just create a back button also, so that we can come back to our previous screen. I'll just write this so that we can make out the difference. Okay. Okay. And again, the controller part is important. So I'll have to use the same thing. Now this is what helps. If you maintain the proper naming conventions, when you do that, then you can just use your code in number of times. Now again, go back to this ID binding. So I need the ID of the screen where I want to navigate. Yep, so this is done. Great. So we'll just have a look whether the new screen is visible without any error and we are able to navigate between these screens. Okay, and just click. Okay, I'm able to come to my new screen, that is validated, and when I click on the back button, yes, the navigation part is working fine. So there is no issue with the navigation. So we can go ahead and we can try to send the data along with the navigation. So coming back to my controller here now. Okay. Fine. So here it says that now in my data variable, okay, I'm trying to send the ID, okay, the ID of the page where I want to navigate, okay, and this is how my data is being sent through the publish event. Okay, this is how I'm publishing on one channel, on one event with this particular data, and right now my data is holding only the ID. Okay, then just close this. We will not require this for now, and even the app view. So we will be needing the controller now, app controller, where my entire navigation is being handled. Okay. Now when I come to this here this particular publish occurs, when particular publish on the channel and the event occurs, this will be called. Okay, this gets alerted because they subscribe to the channel and event, and it will call this function. Inside this function, okay, I am sending my channel name, event, and the data which is coming. Okay, and this data has the ID, hence I'm using data.goToPage. Okay, then what it is doing is it is navigating with the help of .to. It is navigating to the ID mentioned in this particular variable. Okay, there is one more thing here, one more parameter which we have not used. Okay, that is the slide or fade. Okay, then there's a third property also. Okay, before that we'll just check. We have made a change, so it's better to just to confirm. So it's fine. Yeah, there's no issue. Yeah. So coming to the controller again. So as we know, there is a third parameter also which we can send with the help of the .to instruction, and that particular parameter is something which holds my data, which holds the data object, right? So what we'll try to do now is coming to my binding controller. Okay, this particular instruction, which is right now, this is the one which is the holding the data, right? Because this is the one which is getting me the path, which is getting me the data. Okay, where I had tapped, where I had clicked. So I'll just have to do is send this with my event bus. Okay, so now what happens is my my bind data, that is my data variable, which is holding the go to page. Okay, is holding the two variables actually, go to page and bind data. Go to page variable is pointing towards the ID, and the bind data variable is pointing towards the data where the user has clicked the data and the path actually. Okay, so when I publish this event, so this will be fetching the entire go to page and the bind data, both the variables now. So if I just try to go inside the app.controller, here as I said that the third parameter can also be passed, and the third parameter belongs to the data which you're trying to send. If I just do this comma data dot, okay, just trying to predict something. Just not able to do that. Okay, so if we observe data bind, yeah, bind data is perfect. So now what this instruction is going to do is, this instruction, once this particular function gets run, it will check, okay, where the first parameter is your ID. So we have written the ID here, data.goToPage. You just cannot interchange this, because the first parameter always for this particular .2, will be ID. The second parameter will be your slide. The third parameter will be your data to be sent, data to be transferred to the other view. Always remember that SAP UI5 follows this particular pattern. If you have n number of parameters which must be sent inside a certain instruction, then you just cannot skip them, or you just cannot change the order of them. For example, by writing this here or writing this particular go to page here, it will mess the things up. Now we may not see the difference, but when we go to the OData models, when we try to fetch the data from the server, and when we try to execute those instructions, there also, there each and every such kind of one instruction, like there we have something called as OData model .read, .request, .delete something. Okay, these are the things which should be used. There we have n number of properties which can be passed inside, and those properties must be written in an order. If you just try to skip something or try to interchange something, then the code will not work. It will throw an error, throw an unexpected error, and it will be hard to decode the error also, because the errors will be directly pointing to your core libraries, and it will not be easier to find to decode such errors. So it's better to always follow, just go to your SCPFA SDK, look into that instruction. Okay, we'll be using that. We'll be using a lot that when we'll be trying to do the OData. Okay, look at that particular instruction. Okay, what is the hierarchy? What are the order of the parameters to be sent? Which are the optional things? Which are the required things? And try to send in the same manner. Okay, or else it will just throw an error which will point to your core libraries, and it will not be easier to debug them, because core libraries are very tough to understand. Okay, so by saying that we have got the path, okay, to our to the exact point of contact, to the list item where we have tagged. We have stored that in a variable called as bind data. We are sending that, okay, as a data object in my publish, and in my subscribe event, I'm trying to fetch that particular data, and I'm trying to navigate from one page to the other page. I'm now sending this particular data to the other page. Okay, so we'll see if this is working fine without causing an error. When the navigation also works fine. So okay, right, so now fine. So now we know that we are trying to send the data. Okay, so this is the half job done. Okay, so we were trying to fetch the data, then we just tried to save the path in certain variable, and then we try to send that particular data path through the instruction for navigation, that is .2. But this is the half part done, because we have just fetched the things which are trying to send the things. But coming to this page, are we trying to read the things which are coming from our backend, which is coming from our previous page? Okay, now you're sending something from your source. Okay, you're sending something from your source, then the receiver has to receive it, right? The destination has to receive it, right? When a person goes from point A to point B, then there must be a point when the point B must welcome him, must receive him. Okay, so that's the point. Now we are just sending the data now, but here there is nothing written to fetch the data and to store him. Okay, there must be some place where this particular the data which is coming from my previous screen, which from my previous source must be from the source must be stored on my destination. So here at this particular point, the set binding context instruction will appear. Okay, there we had done get binding context. We got the data. We are sending the data now, and once you receive the data at this particular page, here there is a special event, a special function which we use, and in that particular function we try to do set binding context. Okay, I'll say why we do that. First we'll have a look into what is set binding context actually, then we'll see why we'll be using a certain or a specific function for that. To write that particular instruction, we'll be using one separate function for that. Okay, so first going to my set binding context here. Yeah, so here is the set binding context. It says that it can have two particular parameters. One is the O context. Okay, this is the object name or the binding context for the socket. That is generally this will have the context data. For example, now we are trying to send the data, right? So that particular data, that particular object name, okay, will be present inside this. Okay, will be present inside this particular set binding context, and there is something called as model name. This is something very similar to the the alias name, where we when we create a model we use some alias name, right? So in the same way here also we can, when you try to set the data which is coming from your source page to your destination, then you have to give some name so that you can make use of that model, right? So here we can give any alias name and we can make use of the particular model. So here we'll be writing the particular alias name. Okay. So these are the two parameters, the set binding context. Okay. Now if I go back to my code, okay, I will be making use of certain functions now, and we'll see what will be the changes it does. If I go to this particular controller, okay, I'll uncomment all the auto-generated codes that are in my controller. That is, these are the events, as I said earlier. Okay. Okay. I'll just try to give some alerts inside them. I'll just give the name of the function also so that we'll be sure which function is being called. Okay. Okay, so we have our all three functions ready now. So we'll just check the output and just refresh. As I said earlier, the first thing which will be called will be my init function, because once your application is getting loaded, as soon as that particular view is initialized, is created, then this particular on init will be called. Okay, so this is the first thing which is being called. Okay, then I will navigate. Okay, the other two have not been called, right? So just navigate again, and on a click, the other thing will be before that particular view or that particular screen is rendered. Okay, on before render will be called, and once it renders, once the particular event happens, then the on after rendering will be called, right? So these are the events how this occurs. When and again I go back, okay, and I click on this particular email, it is not, now you cannot see the on before on rendering being called, right? So this means that this means that these functions, this on init, on before rendering, and on after rendering, will be called only once in the entire session. A session here means that once you again restart your application, then the other session starts until then the other session starts, and the session ends when you kill your application. Okay, when the application is refreshed, the session will be killed and the new session starts. So in this entire session, only once these particular functions will be called: on init, on before rendering, on after rendering. Now imagine if you try to write the set binding context, if you try to set that particular binding context. Okay, we are trying to fetch that particular data, right? On the tap of a certain list element, we are trying to fetch the data. Okay, if you write this particular set binding context, okay, now I'm trying to get the data for this tab. Okay, then I'll set that particular data. Okay, if I try to set that particular data in my on init or inside my on, I cannot set on my on init, right? Because the reason being, on init is the one which will run, which will be executed as soon as the screens are initialized. So there is no point. It will create an error actually, because at that particular point of time we don't have any kind of any kind of a tap event. So this will create an error if you try to write something inside my on init. So this is out of the option. You cannot write this here. Okay. Save this now. And if I come back to my on before rendering and on after rendering events, okay, here I can actually write those, because at that particular time, on before rendering or on after rendering, all my views are initialized. My tabs, my binding view where the list and the list tab are also initialized. So I can write the code here. I can execute it. But the problem is that these events will be called only once. Now, if I click on my first element, okay, that particular thing will be binded. When I go back and when I try to click on some other element to check the details of that element, then that particular event will not be called, because the reason being, my on before rendering and my on after rendering will be called only once in the one session. In one session they will be called only once. So even these two options are out of picture, because we want our instruction, we want that particular line of code, that is the set binding context, we want that to run n number of times. N number of times here means that we want that to run as many times the user tries to check the details of one particular record. It must execute itself. It must execute the instruction n number of times, right? By writing those in such events, such particular functions, that is on init or on before and on after rendering, it will not give us the desired results. So hence I said that we use a certain function which is called whenever we try to view that screen. That is, it is not like the on before rendering or the on after rendering, that is, it will be called only once. When you try, when you write that function, when you write something on inside that function, then that particular function will be run each and every time when you visit the screen. For example, you will see what function is that. It is something called as okay. So we'll see the output on before show. Okay, the name itself gives you an idea like what it is, what actually it does. Okay, so I just go inside my binding. I'll just say trigger. Okay, on before show is called, right? And I go and come back and I can click on the next. Again, the on before show is called, this was not happening. This was not occurring in my on before rendering or my on after rendering. Again, I'm click on some other record. Again, the on before show is called. So this is the exact function which will help us, and where we have to write the instruction, where we have to set the binding data, because the binding context, that is, the binding context is the one which is holding the entire data related to one particular selected item. So then each and every time when the user clicks on different item, the data will change, and definitely when the data changes, then the modified data must appear on your screen, on the detail screen where you want to see the data. Then definitely you cannot write such kind of instructions which must be executed n number of times inside of functions which are being called only once in a life cycle of an application. So for that reason, SAP UI5, SAP people have given us a function called as on before show. This particular function can be written on any view, okay, and this particular function will be called as soon as you visit that particular view. Okay, it can be n number of times you visit that view. This function will be called for those n number of times. Okay. So now I'll just try to comment this. I'll place my debugger here because I want to see. Okay, I want to stop my execution at this particular point. Okay, I want to see like how I can set my data inside this particular event. Okay, in this particular event, and as you know, we always need the parameter, okay, because right now what I'm trying to do is we'll see what is the need of this, because even in binding controller I use this so that I can come to a point where my binding data is present, where I can get the data from where I have now clicked. So even there is, we'll see what is the help, what are the things which this EVT can help us in. Okay, so if I just go to my Eclipse output, okay, Google, I'll just refresh. Okay, so I'll be binding. Now I'll just see Control Shift I. Okay. Click on this. It has gone inside my list tab. Okay, I'll just run this. Okay, now it has come inside my on before show and it has stopped there. So we'll see like how do we set the things. When I just say EVT now, if you can see the EVT, this event says that this is the type, this event has occurred due to the type something called as before show. Okay, then it has ID from where this particular page, from where this particular event was occurred. That is the ID binding. This particular page was being navigated, or this particular page was shown from the previous page called as ID binding. We have navigated to this page from the previous binding, ID binding, and it's giving the two page or ID also, that is the ID bind detail. We'll see what are the other details which holds within it. Okay. You can observe there are so many things from ID. Okay, in the ID of the root element, that is my app, because this is the one which is allowing us to navigate from one page to the other page. And then there is something to ID also, from which page we have navigated, right? Then we have to search for the thing which is important to us now. There's something called as data. We'll see what it is holding. Yes. So if you can observe here, right? If you can observe here, data. Okay, when if you just go back to code, okay, we'll just go back to a code and see what has actually occurred, what has actually happened. If we go to our app controller here, okay, here what we are trying to do is, if you can observe this data, we are trying to send this particular data dot bind data. We know that when you try to navigate from one page to the other page, we have three properties: ID, okay, transition effect, and the third property will be your data, right? So with the help of this instruction, my on before show event, which is present here, was able to detect from where it was coming and what it was getting. So it was able to detect this ID. Okay, it was saying that, okay, this is the page from where I'm trying to come. Okay, it completely had the information about the source from where from where this particular page was being, was trying to navigate. So it has the details of the ID, okay, from which page we are navigating. It also had the details of the root element which was making the navigation part, okay, and it also has the data which we are trying to send. Okay, this is the data. This is the one which is being shown. Here. Okay, it has the information regarding the data. This particular data now, okay, this particular variable data holds my model and holds the path where I have clicked, right? If I just open this model, and inside my OData, I have my root node, have my data objects inside this. Okay, and the most important part will be my path, because this is the one which will tell where I have actually clicked. So this is the one which will be telling that, okay, where I have clicked. So this means that evt.data, that is evt.data, is going to give me my data which I require, right? evt okay, dot data, right? So evt.data is getting me the exact parameter. This is what the exact thing which we had transmitted, which we have transferred, right? By doing the get binding context, this is what we got. Okay, now the exact path, exact data is being transmitted from one particular page to the other page. So we have received this particular data in my new page now. Now after receiving this data, we want to set this on certain page, right? We have to set this particular, we wanted to set this on a certain thing. Okay, so we'll be seeing like, what actually this then does is this says that set bind, we have to do the set binding context. As we have done the get binding context, then we will have to do the set binding context. Okay, and it says that this particular O context is the one which will hold my data, that is the data which we have sent using this using the get binding context, and this is my string name, right? So this is the string name which will be holding the things. So okay, so what we'll be trying to do is, we all know that while trying to do the get binding context also, we just cannot write the get binding context. We had to drill down to that particular point. We had done that by using evt.getSource.get binding context, right? In the same way, now you're trying to set the things. Okay, now you're trying to set this model with this particular name, but where do you set the model, right? Now that's the point of that's the question. So where do you actually set the model? Okay, so for that the answer will be the page where you have navigated. So that's the point where you want to set the model. Right now you have navigated from your previous page to your source from your destination, and definitely now, and when you're trying to send your data from your source to the destination, then definitely you want your destination to hold the data. So it makes sense that you just set your data which is being sent on your destination page. So the instruction which we'll be going to use is sap.ui. Okay, just a second, it's trying to load. sap.ui.getgo. By ID. Okay, and here I must fetch the ID of this. So I'll have to open my again app view, because I want the ID of this particular page, because this is the page where I want to set my data. So I must use this, right? Or else how does the application know like where we are trying to set the data? So sap.ui.getgo.by ID, okay, gets me this page. On this page I want to set the data. So now I can say set binding context, because now I can set this particular binding context on certain page. Now I'm setting this particular data coming from my previous source page on my destination page. Okay, set binding context, and we know that the first parameter will be my data. So I also know that evt.data is the one which is holding my data which is coming from my previous page, that is my source page, comma, and there must be an alias name, right? I'll just try to maintain the same alias name. Okay, this is m%. Okay, now I just save this. Okay, so we'll just try to stop this on the debugger, and we'll see okay what changes occur, okay, what changes happen before the debugger and after the execution of this instruction. So if you just go to my Google screen, okay, I'll just refresh the page. Shift I. Yeah, so it has stopped inside the debugger for the list tab. Okay, we want it to go ahead to the other debugger. Okay, it's in noun before show. Now we'll try to get that particular page, sap.ui.getgo.by ID. The ID, it is ID mine detail. Okay, this has brought me the page. Okay, so it is holding these many things, right? Models of parents, etc., etc. Okay, so binding context, there's nothing here also. So we'll see like what will be the change once we do this. Yes, so okay, try to open this. This one before show. If there was an event called round before show, so that is also being shown here. And if you see the propagated properties, right? Initially, before that particular instruction was executed, the O binding context was shown alone. Okay, it was not inside something. But now, if after the execution has been executed, it is showing something called as propagated properties. And inside propagated properties, there is something called as O models. Okay, and there inside my O models, okay, I have the M person, right? So this is the one way which we are trying to, which you have created here, right? By saying the set binding context, we created, we tried to put the data coming from the source is on my page with the name with the name called as M person. So now my page is holding some model with the name called as M person, and my M person is the one which is having the entire data coming from the source page. Okay, if you just observe here, right, this is the one which is holding my entire data coming from a source page, but along with that there is a path also which is being held. So we'll see how we can try to bind the things. We'll try to now here once we go to the code. Okay, yeah, I'll just try to bind a simple property. Okay, I'll just try to bind the title of this page. Okay, the binding is very simple now. N person greater than this will be the, okay, if you can observe, I'm not trying, I'm not following any particular exact path here, right? I'm not trying to follow the root node, the slash. Okay, we'll see whether this works. Okay, let's just check here. Yes, the title has been changed. Okay, I click on Dinesh. Title is changing. It means that particular line, first of all, what it is doing is it has got the data. Okay, the data related to that particular record. Okay, it has this particular thing holds the path, holds the data. Okay, and we have set that particular path and data on my bind detail page. Okay, and we have given certain name, alias name. Okay, and now we are just trying to bind this. And why we are trying to just bind directly the name, and why we are not using the root node, that is the that is exactly this. Okay. Why we are not trying to follow the entire path, that is root node slash one dash gender. Why we are not trying to follow this is because the reason being we already have sent the path, right? By saying get binding context and set binding context. Now that particular page is holding the exact data related to that particular record. So we need not have to again mention this because we already sent the path, we already sent the data. So we already, all we have to do is simply just just give the property name, which you want to show. That's all. So just by saying that, okay, M person is my data model. Inside this, I just want to bind my property. This is the key. This is the key of value which I want to bind. So just by saying name, it just binded the exact name from which I have navigated, because I know the path. Because get binding context gave me the path, and the set binding context has set the path on my page. So I just have to use the things. So now right now we have only 3 parameters here. You can have n number of parameters, n records, okay, and n number of key value pairs in your one record, and on selection of that particular one record, okay, and on that particular selection you can just on the particular selection you can just show the entire data related to that particular one record. Okay, now if you want, I can just use some other variables also, and I'll just create quickly one label detail, then I'll just say Mlius2btb. Okay, let's skip the ID part. we know that the label has a property called as text, right? And for the binding in double quotes inside the flower braces, you have to write the binding, right? I'll just try to bind some other property. This is the gender. Okay, save this. Okay, before saving I have to again put this inside the content, then again save this. Okay, yes, then I have to just go here and just refresh the page. Try to log in binding, so just click on sugar. So here's it is, the name and the gender both are binded, right? So this is how you try, this is how you try to do the bind, try to navigate from one page to the other page and try to send the data from one page to the other page. This is how it's done actually. Okay, so and I wanted to show the other way around of bind property. You can also use your object name or label, okay, dot, there is something called as bind property, like we have the bind aggregation, right, where we had used object name dot bind aggregation. In the same way, we have something called as object name dot bind property. Okay, and here inside this you have two parameters. First parameter will be the value, the property which you want to bind. Like the bind aggregation, the first value was the items which we want to bind, and the second value will be your path, right? So here this is my path. Okay, so we'll see how this works. Yes, it works fine, even the other way also. Okay, so as I said earlier, each and every control have two ways in which you can set something or you can get something. So either you can bind it in this way, okay, just by saying text colon inside double quotes put flower braces and write give the path, or else take the object name, okay, and say bind property, use the property name which you want to bind and just give the path, but here without the flower braces. Okay, so there are two ways of following. You can follow the one which is easier, which is helpful to you. We just follow this because once we create the labels, once we create certain elements, we just try to bind them directly instead of again using the label name and again doing the bind property. This will be used when you are trying to navigate, when you're trying to do some function, and after a certain event has occurred, if you want that particular label to show that particular data, then in such case you can use this. You can use this label and say that bind property. For example, on a tap of a button, I want to show some data on that. Then you can, on a tap of a button, you call a function. Inside the function, you can write this instruction and you can set that. Okay, you can do that. So this will be helpful in such cases. If you know that this is the particular data which I want to show directly, then you need not have to follow this. You can directly show it with the help of this method also. So there are two methods. Okay, so by this, the general binding part, okay, comes to an end. So coming to the binding, we had discussed the creation of the data, how does the JSON model is created, then how do we put that particular data model that is inside a model, data is the data variable inside a model, and the model we set on a core. Then we try to bind the elements individually. Then we have seen how to bind the elements with the help of bind aggregation, so that it detects and it creates the copies dynamically depending on the number of records coming from our data. Okay, then we also saw how to make the two-way bindings, that is to add a record and at the runtime how to update them. Like if the data is modified, then how do we show the modified data to the screens, because my screen doesn't know that the data is modified, so I have to tell the screen that data has been modified. So we had used there something called as update bindings. Okay, so after that, then we went ahead with the get binding and the set binding context, which tells us to navigation between one page to the other page. Along with that, how to send the data, how to fetch the exact data, like where the user has clicked the data related to that particular record, then sending it to the other page. We have covered this. Then after coming to the other page, how do we set the data on that page? How do we show the data which has been set on that page? Okay. So any doubts regarding this? So today we will be ending this session. Okay. So tomorrow I'll be going ahead with my OData, okay? And in my OData, the concept which we have covered today and yesterday, the same concepts will be covered, but since here the data will be coming from a server, okay, I'll be trying to use a server which is freely available so that even you people can test on it. Okay, I'll be using data coming from a server and we'll try to modify or play with the data coming from the server. So the approach differs. The approach will vary because it is our data coming from a server, but the concepts wise the concept remains entirely same. Just the approach, the way we try to fetch the data, the way we try to write the data or update the data differs, but the concept remains the same. Okay, so from tomorrow we'll be looking into that. We have actually three different methods in which we can read or write the data, and that is read or update the data coming from a server, that is OData. I will be discussing all the three methods. Well, it is not required actually, but even then I will be discussing with you all the three different methods. Okay, we will have examples created. We will do all the crude methods, that is create, read, delete, update. Okay, we'll try to do all the four methods or all the four functionalities which can be performed on a data. Okay, with all the three methods. Okay. So tomorrow we'll start with the OData part. I'll be sharing this project with you people, so please go through this. If you have any doubts, okay, you can ask me anytime, okay, and be clear. Get your doubts cleared for this particular binding part. How do we bind aggregation, bind property, the most important parts, and and tomorrow, once we start the OData, we have three different methods to be covered. As I said, that is one is the jQuery method, the $Ajax method. Other is the second one is the OData method, and the third one is the data.js method. And in three methods, we have four functionalities to cover. That is crude operations: create, read, update, delete. I will be covering all the four functions in each method. That means we have to cover 12 functions. Okay, so OData will be a long session. It will be almost it will take 6 to 7 classes for me, 1 hour sessions to complete the OData. Okay, so by the completion of this particular thing, we are almost at the halfway point. Almost 40 to 50% of the SAP Wi-Fi has covered. The most important part actually begins tomorrow. Okay, because the data from server is important. Okay, so we'll just stop here then. Yeah.
Jigar, when you say OData, are we using SAP OData or?
Yes, we will be using the SAP OData coming from a gateway. If you just give me a couple of seconds, my laptop is going to die. I'll just put for charging. Yeah, sorry for that. Yes, Shrikant. Hello?
No, I just wanted to confirm that we are using SAP OData and not.
Yes. But here actually we will not be using the servers of some organization because you will not have access to that. So I'll be trying to take the URL or the service which is available on the internet, which is an OData service. Okay. There are a number of examples available on the internet for the OData consumption. So I'll take one of the URL, okay, from there, and we'll try to execute the all the crude operations with all the three methods. Okay.
Why not SAP OData from the gateway?
Yeah, actually I'm trying. I will be taking the data from the gateway itself, but this particular gateway is this particular web service is freely available on the internet. I will be using the gateway service itself. Okay, so this particular gateway service, we will not be creating the gateway. Will not logging into gateway and will not create our own services, because that's the part which is done by the backend person. So it's not of our concern to go and create the entire gateway service which we want to use, right? The gateway person creates the service and gives us. So I have a service which is being given to me. So I will be using that gateway service. The data will be coming from my SAP NetWeaver gateway itself. Okay, we'll be using that service and we will try to do the crude operations on that particular service. Okay. So the creation of the data, the creation of the gateway service is something related to the backend person. So we will not be touching that part. The backend person will deal with that. Okay. So tomorrow, once we start the OData, you will have a clear picture like from where does our role starts and from where does the backend person's role starts. Okay, because there is a thin line between there. So we'll be knowing that what are the things which come under our basket and what are the things which go under his basket. Okay. So tomorrow again same 7 to 8:30. If all it's fine for all the three, or can we extend tomorrow? Vimal, Dinesh, Shrikant, is it fine for you tomorrow 7 to 8:30, or can we extend?
I am open.
Sorry?
I am open.
Oh, okay, Shrikant, that's good then. What about the other two? Dinesh, Vimal?
I may not be available tomorrow, Jigar, but if you guys want to go ahead, I'll take the recording from Srikanth.
Okay, so you'll not be attending tomorrow then. Even a 1.5 hour session you'll not be attending tomorrow.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'll be home at that time or not. If I'm at home, I'll definitely attend, but not sure at this point.
Okay, then what about Vimal? Vimal, are you okay with the timings? 7 to 8:30?
Yeah, for me it's fine.
Okay, then okay, Dinesh, then we'll not extend the session. We'll try to cover only the we'll try to do only 1.5 hour session. If possible, try to attend. Even if you don't, if you're not attending, then you will be having the videos with you so that you can go through them. I'll not cover the, I'll not go much deeper into the details. I'll be trying to keep the basics so that again, once you're back on Monday, so we'll be going inside the entire details. Okay. So try to attend tomorrow.
Okay, no problem.
If
Yeah, I will.
So
I'll try to attend, but.
Okay, that's fine. So Shrikant and Vimal, so tomorrow same 7 to 8:30. Okay, we'll be starting with your data. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay then, friends. We'll meet tomorrow. Bye. Take care.